everyone, and thanks for joining me today. I would like to share with all of you a new project that I've recently finished and a tutorial for creating it. So as you can see, I have a new box here on my table, and it was created with the beautiful papers from the collection called Flower Moon by Fabrika Decoru. And here is a project that I would like to show you today. It is a box with a sliding closure. This is, by the way, how the sides look like. I've just added some metal pulls. On the back, I've included a pocket, and the pocket holds a tag. The box is opened like this. You slide this kind of a buckle down, and then the box flips open. Inside the box there is an album, and there is also this plastic cover on top of the album to prevent the buckle damaging the album while it slides on top of it. So to take the album out of the box, I'm just pulling by this ribbon, which is connected to the bottom of the box. Let me show you how the album looks like. It's really simple, and it has 5 spreads. It measures if I'm not mistaken, 4 by 6 inches. On the cover, I've included once again several die cuts from the paper collection, as well as some die cut leaves, and this sentiment here which says enjoy the little things. And I've also die cut some circles to complete the design of the album cover. This is how the back looks like, and the spine is just simple, covered with paper. We'll start with constructing the base of the box, and for that we will need a few pieces of chipboard. I'm using medium weight chipboard, which is about 1/16 of an inch in thickness, or in millimeters it's about well, I guess 2 millimeters, or maybe 1.5, something like that. So the largest piece here measures 4.5 by 6.5 inches. 2 of the side pieces measure 4.5 by 1.5, and 2 longer side pieces measure 6 5/8 by 1.5 of an inch. So we will also need a few connecting hinges that will help you to form the box, and these are 1 inch wide by, the smaller ones are 4.5 of an inch long, and the longer ones are 6 5/8 of an inch long. So we will first take the short ones, and we will remove the backing from, well, I have score tape here on the back side of that connection hinge or strip, however you want to call it. So I removed the backing from 1/2 of that hinge, and I will stick it down to the chipboard large piece up to the score line, so that when I fold the connection strip this way, I have a straight angle over here. And I will do the same thing on the other side. Like that. I will burnish using my bone folder to ensure that everything is glued down properly. Now I will remove the backing from the second half of the hinge, and I will take that smaller side piece of chipboard and I will keep it in a standing position on top of my working surface and against this chipboard piece like that, and while holding it this way, I will lift this hinge on the right hand side and glue it down, and then when I unfold the chipboard piece, I have a perfect spacing here in between two of the chipboard parts, which is equal to the thickness of the chipboard that I'm working with. I hope that makes sense. I will do the same from the other side. And I will have once again that perfect spacing in between the pieces. Now I need to attach two of the longer pieces of chipboard to my box. And for doing that, I will take the longer connection strip. I will remove the backing from 1/2 only, and I will attach it straight to the chipboard piece that I have here up to the score line. Once again, we are not covering the score line with chipboard. I can still see the score line here, and when I fold the connection strip, I have a straight angle right here. I'll do the same with the second connection strip and longer side piece of my future box. We do the same thing. We don't cover the score line on the connection strip, and a straight angle once again. Okay, so now for the inside of the box, we need to reinforce it somehow. We need some more connection strips, and there are 4 of them over here. 2 of them measure 1 inch in width by 4.5 in length, and 2 additional ones are 1 inch in width and 6.5 in length. So I will now fold them so that the score tape will be facing up. I will remove the backing from 1/2 of the hinge, and I will apply it to the central chipboard piece so that they get to the very edge of the chipboard but not overlap it, and there are no overhangings from the sides. And when I fold this side piece up, nothing prevents it from folding freely. So when everything will be assembled, this will be the side look that we will get. Okay, so the second hinge will go on the opposite side in the very same way. I'm applying it along the very edge of the central large chipboard piece, like that, and I can still fold up that side piece without any problem. Nothing prevents it from folding. Okay, now might be that you will need to use your scissors and trim this 6.5 inch long connection strip just a little bit, so that once glued down over here, it allows to the side hinges fold up easily, creating the straight angles right here. Okay, so I will remove the backing from 1/2 of the hinge only, and I will apply it starting from the fold line on the left side along the very edge and up to the fold line on the right side of the large chipboard piece. And this is what I have been talking about, that the fold lines are free here from paper, and the hinge, which is this one, the long one, doesn't cover with itself the fold lines on the sides. And what's left to do is to glue down the long hinge on the opposite side. Here we go. Now we do this. I will remove the backing from the short hinge, which is connected currently to the central base piece of our box, and I will pay attention that I have a straight angle, and I will glue this hinge down. I will burnish and do the same on the opposite side. Like this. Now I will take one of the long chipboard pieces, remove the backing, okay, and now I need to do it this way. We need to first of all make sure that we have a good connection point here in this corner. Okay, so this is the first thing, and then I will slightly glue the hinge down to the central piece of the box, and do the same thing here. Okay, now I can burnish the rest of the connection strip like that. And I will do the same thing. Well, maybe it's already time to remove the backing from this part of the hinge, and making sure that we have perfectly aligned corners, we can glue this half of the hinge to the long side chipboard piece like that. And now let's do the same on the opposite side. Now we will need a few, well, actually 4 additional paper hinges for reinforcing our box on the outside. And to be very exact, these hinges should be 1/16 of an inch longer than the height of our box, which is 1.5 of an inch. So let me cut these now, and I will get back. Here they are, 4 pieces, so I will just score them on the short side, in the middle. And now I will have to apply score tape to all of them. Okay, burnish. Now I can take one of the connection hinges, reinforce the score line, remove the backing from the score tape on that hinge, like that. I'll take my box. I'll make sure that the angle here in the corner is straight, and the corner is straight actually of the box that I'm forming, and I will cover that with my hinge like so. Now it's better to have the hinge larger than having it smaller. So if it's a little bit larger than needed and you see it only when you connect the hinge to the box, you will trim the excess off just like I did right now. Okay, like this. You will do the same with the remaining 3 hinges, and you will check every time you glue each one of the hinges down to the box. You will check that the height of it is correct, otherwise you will trim down the excess using your scissors. Here we go. Now for additional hinges to reinforce the inside corners of the box, and these are 1.5 by 1 inch, scored in the middle and with the score tape on their back. Now I think that in this case we'll need to trim the hinge, and it will be less than 1.5. It will be, well, 1/16 less than 1.5. And we will once again remove the backing and position it in the very corner of the box, and only then we will glue it down. Burnish on top of the hinge like that. Now we will continue doing that. Now, I prefer to check every time how much of the paper I need to trim. Because maybe I was not precise enough, and in one of the corners I will need to trim either more or less. Like here, for example, you see that little piece sticking out, so I will trim it more. Here, now it's better. So I will position it in the corner and then unfold and reinforce and burnish on top. Of course, we will not leave the edges of the box that way, so we will need 4 more of the connection strips, and 2 of them will measure 6.5 by 1 inch, folded in half along the long side with the score tape on the back, and these will go here, and 2 more will measure 4 5/8 of an inch, scored along the long side in the middle with the score tape on the back. So first we will attach the long hinges on top, and I do it this way. I remove the backing from 1/2 of the hinge once again, and then I attach it to the side panel of the box up to the score line, centering it here, okay, like that. And then before gluing down the hinge to the inside of the box, I remove the backing and add just a little bit of glue, of wet glue, on the edge of the chipboard. Make sure everything is glued down nicely. Now let's do the same on the other side. Now we need these hinges to cover the corners of our box, since we are using the gray color chipboard and we want our box corners to be white. So I will trim on 1/2 of the hinge the corners in this way, so that I still have a bit of paper that will cover the corners. Okay, like that. Now I will remove the backing from 1/2 of the hinge and I will attach it to the shorter panel of the box up to the score line, making sure that I center it first. Okay, burnish and fold it out, remove the backing, apply some glue, and fold it in. Okay, so the corner should look like this, covered with the paper from the top. Now let's do the same from the other side. Here we go. Now our box needs a cover, and this is what we will create right now. For creating the cover, we will need several pieces, and they're all layered here on the surface. Maybe I will rotate them this way so you will see. Okay, so let's cut the rectangles first, and the first one will be 4 3/4 by 3 inches. The second will be 4 3/4 by 1 3/4. The third will be 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. The fourth 4 3/4 by 1 5/8, and the fifth one will be 4 3/4 by 6 inches. Now we will put these pieces aside for now, and we will work with these ones. So I have a few guidelines here. This guideline from the right hand side stands 1 1/4 inch away from the right edge of the piece. This guideline stands 2 1/2 inches away from the left edge of the chipboard piece. Then this guideline on top stands 3/4 inch away from the top edge, and the bottom guideline stands 1 1/2 inch away from the bottom edge of the chipboard. I will now cut out the opening over here, which is created with the help of the guidelines. Now on this piece I also have a few guidelines. The one on the right stands 1 1/4 inch away from the right edge. This one stands 2 1/2 inches away from the left edge, and this guideline on top stands 1 1/2 inch away from the bottom of the chipboard piece, and I will cut out this section as well. This is what you need to have. Now we will start to wrap all of the 5 pieces with cardstock in order to create the cover for our box. Now I have this long piece of cardstock over here. To get it, I took 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11 inches cardstock, and I trimmed them along the long side to 5 3/4 of an inch. Then I connected 2 of the pieces with the strip of score tape, and I also drew 2 guidelines which stand 1/2 inch away from the bottom, and the second one stands 1/2 inch away from the left edge of this long cardstock piece. Now I will start to layer all of my pieces on top of the cardstock. I will start with this piece over here, and I will flip it down like that with all my writings on the back side. I want to have that opening once the cover is assembled. I want to have it on the right hand side. If you want to have it on the left hand side, you will put it like this on top of the cardstock. So let me apply some glue and put this piece on top of the cardstock using the guidelines for aligning the chipboard piece on top of the paper, like so. I will also burnish. And flip to the front side to burnish here as well. Okay. Now I will layer this the next piece on top of the cardstock, and this will be the one measuring 1 5/8 inch in width. I need to leave some spacing in between the 2 chipboard pieces, and I will use this Martha Stewart ruler that I have for that as my template. The width, the thickness of this ruler is roughly 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit thicker than that. No, 1/8 of an inch exactly. So I will use that as my template, and I will keep the ruler like that, and then I will use the guideline at the bottom of the cardstock and the ruler itself as my second guideline, and I will continue layering down and gluing down all the chipboard pieces on top of the cardstock, while the next piece will be this one, 6 3/4 by 4 3/4, and once again I will leave the spacing of 1/8 of an inch in between. Then I will layer the one which is 4 3/4 by 1 1/2, and once I get to the last one, this one with an opening on the side, I will also flip it this way, and I will make sure that I have less spacing till the edge from an opening here on the side which is closer to the edge of the cardstock, and I will have the side with 1 1/2 of an inch distance from the edge of the chipboard till the opening itself on the side which is closer to the rest of the chipboard pieces. Okay, I'm done now with that step, and I will trim the excess from this side. I will leave only 1/2 an inch cardstock piece from this right hand side, like that. Now I will miter the corners like that, and I'm sorry for the noise. The kids are playing in the next room. I cannot keep them silent right now. Okay, let's do that, and let's see. On this side I will create a cut line which will be in the middle between two sections here, and it will stand about 1/2 inch away from this cut line of chipboard. Then I will cut from the corners to the cut line that I've created previously. And I also need to trim the corners like so, leaving about 1/8 of an inch from the cut line till the corner of the chipboard itself. And here I will do the same, one cut line in the middle, and then from the corners to the cut line from both sides of the opening, like this. Now I will get back to my score tape, and I will apply score tape on the long edges of this whole piece that we've created, like so. Okay, I will now burnish with my bone folder, and I will train the paper to fold before I actually wrap it in. I will remove the backing from the score tape and wrap two of the long edges, starting from the middle and working towards the sides. In the same manner, I will wrap this side. I've applied score tape to the edge. Now I will remove the backing and wrap this. Now around the opening here, you will also apply double-sided tape, and then remove the backing, and you will wrap all the 4 pieces in like so, burnishing first on the edges to make them look crisp and straight. Okay, do that with all the 4 flaps that you have, and you'll get this. This is how it looks from the front. On the other side, pretty much we do the same thing. I've applied score tape now in these 3 places. So right now I will wrap first in these sections. Okay. And like this. And now here, this tiny flap, a triangular one. And now I will just add more score tape in these areas, and I will wrap the remaining flaps of the cardstock. Just like that, making sure that I really pull the paper and it looks nice on the front and on the sides. I will burnish now. Okay, so this is what we need to get at the end of this step. Also need to cover with white cardstock these areas on the spines, and for doing that I first applied score tape to the outer edges of each one of the chipboard pieces. So this is how it looks from this side, and exactly the same it looks from the side which is closer to this edge. Now I will remove the backing from the score tape. Oh, and by the way, I didn't apply the score tape all the way to the top and the bottom of the I've applied it about 1 1/4 of an inch away from the edges. This is just something that you need to pay attention to. Now I took some leftover pieces of cardstock, and in my case they are 2 3/4 of an inch wide by 4 1/2. What I'll do now, I will apply some liquid glue in the area where there is no score tape, and I will also apply glue in the seams, in those spacings between the chipboard pieces, and in addition to the very edges of this cardstock piece. Now I will layer it on top like that. I will burnish. I will let it dry for a while, and only once it's dry I will gently start to fold the cover and crease the fold lines on the spines. So let me do that from the other side as well. Okay. In the spaces between the chipboard pieces, on the spine in the area which is not covered with score tape, and on the edges of the cardstock piece. And now I also need to center it from the bottom and the top. Okay, like this. Now we will wait till it dries. This side, I'm folding gently and creasing the fold line with my bone folder at the same time. Okay, like this, and the same on the other side. Like this. I think we can now attach the box, and for doing this I will also take my score tape and I will apply it on the edges of the box's base, and in the middle section I will add liquid glue for extra strength. Burnish, of course. I want to pay your attention to the fact that while you will be gluing the box down to the cover, you will need to center it. Okay, now I'll add a decent amount of glue. Okay, and now I will center and glue the box down to the cover. Okay, let's see. Yeah, now we can press. Now look how perfect everything turns out. We will of course need to embellish everything with the designer paper, and we will do it now. What you can embellish is the outside of the box, okay, these panels, and you can also start to think about which papers you will use on the front on the spines right here, and on the covers of your box. Embellishing my box and cover, I chose wonderful paper from the Ukrainian brand Fabrika Decoru, and the collection is called Flower Mood. So for our box, this is the collection that we will use, and what you'll do is the following. You will measure the size of each one of the outside panels of the box. You will cover them with the designer paper, and I also covered with the designer paper the spines of my box's cover, and I've embellished the inside bottom of the box. And before doing that, I glued down ribbon to this paper piece, and later when I put an album inside the box, it will be easier to pull it out. And before embellishing the inside panels of the box, I attached the metal pulls to the sides of it. So this is what I did until now. Now I can cover the inside panels of the box with the prepared pieces of the designer paper from the mentioned collection. I will do it now, and I will get back to you to embellish the front of the box's cover. Here we go. I've embellished the whole inside of the box, and now it's time to cover with the designer paper the top of the album, the top of the box's cover. For doing that, you will first cut the paper down to the needed size, and in my case, with small white border, the piece for this section will measure 4 5/8 of an inch by 6 inches, maybe slightly smaller. And for the top section, it will be 4 5/8 by 3 inches. To perfectly cut out this window right here, what you do, and it's the easiest way, you attach the paper to the chipboard panel first, leaving that little white border on all the 4 edges, on all the 4 sides, and then you will flip the box to the back side like that, and making sure that you don't move that paper underneath, you will take your pencil and trace the opening on the back side of the designer paper. And then you will need, of course, to cut it out, and I'm cutting out just a little bit away from the line that I've traced, because I want a little white border around the opening as well. So I hope you will be able to see that. If the line that I've traced is here closer to the right side, the cut line is just a couple of millimeters, or maybe 1/16 of an inch away from it to the left. And I will do that same thing from all the 4 sides, next to all the 4 lines that I've traced, and I will get back. Okay, I've cut it out, and now let's see how it looks on the cover itself. I think it's okay. Now for the top section, you do the same. You attach the pattern paper piece first, then, trying not to move it, you flip it to the back side, trace with a pencil the opening, and cut 1/16 of an inch away from the traced line. Okay, like this. And then when you attach it to the cover, you will have that little border, which will look like this. So I will glue down the papers, and I will do the very same thing for the inside panels of the cover. So for example, these are the papers that I've chosen for the inside of my box's cover. So I will apply them this way, but to cut an opening, I will first attach them a lining from all the four sides, flip to the back side, and I will use my pencil once again to trace. And just as previously we already did, I will cut a bit away from the traced line. Let's see. Let's try that on. Okay, this is how it will look like, with a little border around the opening. Now you can choose whether to paint with white acrylic paint those little areas that are seen on the back, or to leave them that way. I think I will use a bit of paint, and I will add it to the tiny areas of chipboard which are seen. Not a difficult thing to do, and if you have white acrylic paint, why not to do that, right? I will cover the panels with the paper and once again get back to you. Here we go. We've done this step as well, and as a finishing touch, I've added the designer paper to the inside of the spines as well. Now every box needs a closure, so let's get to it. Remember that piece of chipboard that we've cut out to create this window, so I will use it now. I need to trim it just a little bit because it is 1 inch in width, but I need it to be slightly smaller, so I will trim it to 7/8 of an inch in width, and then in length I need 3 pieces that will be 1 inch long. So I will cut them now. Here we go. There are 3 tiny rectangles, 1 by 7/8 of an inch. I will glue them down together like so. So I have 1 stack of these, and for completing the closure I will also need, well, you can use squares or rectangles. Just for the sake of the designs, I have here 2 chipboard circles that I've cut out using the Alterations Tim Holtz circle die, and I've used the middle-sized circles. So I've cut out 2 of those, and now what we do is this. So first of all, this piece now can easily move inside the window. So I will do this. I will attach the circle to the back side of my cover so that it doesn't get off the edge like so. I want it to be hidden with the cover once it's closed. So I will put the circle somehow like that. Now I will apply glue to my stack of rectangles, and I will glue the stack of rectangles down to this side of the circle all the way to the edge of the window, to the top edge of the window, like that. Okay, now I need to put something inside just to hold it in place while I will be gluing down the top piece. So let's see if 2 boxes of distress inks can work. And I think they can, but turned out that 3 layers of chipboard were not enough, so I've cut one more, 4th one. I will glue it down to the previous stack. And I'm sorry for the confusion. Here, the 4th layer. So I will now get it back to the, to this place. Okay, and I still have those distress inks boxes underneath. Okay, so this way and this way. Now I need to apply glue now to the top rectangle. Okay, and now I can cover it with this piece. And leave it that way, guys, till it dries completely. Put something heavy on top. Something heavy like, I don't know, I have this paper press, so I will put it on and I will leave it that way till it is completely dry. The glue gets dry, you will be able to start using your closure. You can now embellish the buckle the way you want, and we will now get to making the album for the inside of the box. As our box is really sturdy, I've decided to create an album that will go inside from heavyweight cardstock. You will need 3 pieces of cardstock, as you can see here. The first one will be 6 inches wide by 9 1/4 inch long, and you will score it at 4 inches and at 5 1/4. This will be our cover. The second piece will be 6 inches wide by 8 3/4 inch long, and you will score it at 4 inches and 4 3/4, and you will apply some double-sided tape on the middle section on the back side of this paper piece. And the third piece will be 6 inches by 8 1/4, scored at 4 inches and 4 1/4, and you will once again apply double-sided tape to that 1/4 inch spacing in the middle of the paper piece. Now we need to assemble this, and the base for our album will be ready. And now every time you glue down a smaller piece of cardstock to the larger one, try to center it in between the score lines that you have on the bottom paper piece. So I will remove the backing from the tape, and I will now try to use the guidelines on my craft mat, and I hope that this will help me to center the page better. Okay, like that. Burnish, and the second piece. Once again, I want to center, so I will use the guidelines on my craft mat, and I will hold this piece like so, and glue it down, making sure that I aligned it not only from the left and right side, but also from top and bottom. Well, this is the base for our album. Now what's left to do is only to embellish it in whatever way that you prefer to do that. And once again, I don't want the album to be too bulky, and the size will be okay for 3.5 by 5 inch pictures that will go either directly on the pages themselves, or you can also create some side pockets or horizontal pockets or belly bands or some other flaps, because the thickness between the gaps between the pages absolutely allow that. When the album goes inside the box, well, let me show you the box, by the way. I've embellished it already, and the embellishments are pretty simple, but the paper is really darling, so I like how it turns out so far. I've used some die cut leaves, and the flowers here are cut out from that 12 by 12 sheet that I've showed you in the beginning of the video. This sentiment here is also cut out from one of the strips from the designer paper. This piece slides down, and here I've added some more cutout flowers from the paper collection. Now I've cut out a 2-inch circle using just a thin metal die that I had, and I've embellished the chipboard circle on the sliding closure of the box. Now from the inside, I've added this acetate piece that will help, first of all, to add some more stability to the box, and also if I put some paper embellishments of flowers on the cover of the album, the plastic acetate sheet will prevent the sliding closure of the box from damaging the embellishments on the album cover, because when you close the box and the closure itself slides here in the opening that we've created for it, it can really damage the embellishments that will be right here on the cover. So to prevent this from happening, I've put this little acetate insert into the box, and to create the insert you will just need a piece of acetate, and the one that I'm using here is not very thick. You just need it to be transparent and to prevent the sliding closure once again from damaging the embellishments on the album cover. So this piece here is 7 1/8 of an inch by 9 1/8 of an inch, and on the short side it's scored at 1 3/4, 1 3/8, and at 5 3/4, and on the long side it is scored at 1 3/8 and at 7 3/4. So then you just basically cut out the square sections that will be on in the corners, in all the 4 corners. And then I've just used my We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper and rounded the corners of these flaps. So this piece goes inside the box and covers the album like this, and basically your project is done. So embellish the box in whatever way you like. By the way, on the back side of it, I've just added a little pocket which holds this tag. That's the whole project. Let me know what you think, and see you soon in the next videos. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.